Okay, let's do this tutorial for doing a Danish woven paper heart. What you can see here is my template and it's printed on white paper. When we're in classes, we will have the template printed on different colors of paper. What you need to do a heart is you need 2 different colors and you're going to weave those together. And you will end up with a heart looking kind of like this. And you can open it and you can put stuff in it and you can even put a handle on it so you can carry it around. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to fold your template. And if you want to help the kids, you're going to cut between the parts. So each kid gets a piece like this and they can cut them out individually. It's quite important that they cut this slit all the way up to the top, because otherwise it'll be really hard to actually match the heart pieces together. So I've cheated a bit, and since I only have white paper in US sizes, I'm just going to do a double here. And I'm going to cut around the outer part of the heart as close to the line as I can. And of course, the more precisely the kids cut, the better it'll be. And then I'm going to cut the slit here in the middle. And I now have 2 paper pieces. What you can do is you can turn the inside out on these so you don't get the lines. And I've made my own homemade red paper here. So I'll now show you how to do a red and white paper heart. So the first thing you need to do is if you place them like this, you can see it'll end up like a heart. I usually say take the top one, and we're going to weave the right one, because I'm right-handed, so that's easier for me, into the white part here. So first I'll take this red one and put it in between the 2 layers of white on the first strip. So I'm sticking it through the white part. And since we're weaving, the next thing is we're going to have this red part go around this white. And I'll simply just stick the white bit in here. I've now woven the first red strip, first in between the white and then around the white. Then I'll push that all the way to the top of the slit. Wiggle, wiggle. Then we need to do the opposite. So now this red strip needs to go around the white. And in through the white. And this last corner is sometimes a bit iffy, so you might need to stick your fingers in and pull it. And that is why we do the really wide strips when it's a learning thing. Now you've got a basket that's heart-shaped, and again, you can put a handle on so you can carry it around or hang it on something, or you could grab a book, and that's what we discussed. You can grab a book and use it as a bookmark by simply sticking it onto the page you've reached, and then it'll be hidden, but when you open, that's just sitting there on the page. So that was the basic woven heart with only 2 strips, and you will want to use copy paper thickness in different colors. And if you feel this is too easy, you can basically just cut extra strips. I'll show you that in a moment, and make more lines. And when you get good at that, you can even have hearts with motifs in the middle, like horses or hearts or whatever rocks your boat. So if you find the 2 strips too easy, or if some of the kids think it's too easy for them, you can use this same template. And This is where you'll want the kids to use a ruler or at least a piece of like straight paper, because you want to make sure that the slits are all in the same height, and they don't have to have the same width. So you can basically like divide this in two and then have a wide and two narrow strips, or you can divide it in four and have 4 strips. And I'll show you a variation where the strips are not of equal width. I'm going to do 3 strips. And I'll turn the inside out so I don't have to look at those stripes I just drew. And here's the red part. And since this is pastel, it's kind of coming off on my fingers and the white paper. So if you decide to color your paper yourself, don't use something that comes off. It usually looks better if you have the strips of the same size, either both at the top or both at the bottom. The principle is the same. You pick the upper strip on your dominant hand usually, put it through and over and through, and then slide it to the top. You don't want to do the next strip before you've slid it all the way to the top, because it'll be harder to slide it when you've woven more stripes. Then I'm grabbing the next strip, it's the thin one. And on the first one I went through the red, so this time I'm going to go over the red. And then through. And then over. This is going to be a bit tight because I didn't cut these slits quite as high as I should have. So what you can see now is what happens if you don't cut your slits up high enough, is it'll be hard to fit the last strip in. But with a bit of meddling, you can usually make it work if it's only like a millimeter or 2. We've gone through, over, and then this one has to be through. So you basically go every other through, every other over. This is where you need to be careful and not rip the paper. And that's why copy paper is easier to start with than the kind of paper we usually use in the Scandinavian countries, which is thinner and rips really easy. And it's glossy. And there we go. That was a 3-strip part. What you can see is you've now got a little red square here in the middle. If someone were a math teacher, working on symmetry in a class that's a bit older than 2nd grade, you can have the kids actually work on doing their own motifs. So this is where you pause the video if you think that's not for me. I'm good. I just need to be able to weave with like 2 or 3 strips. I just need basic hearts down. If you wanted to do your own motif, you still cut the same basic shape. And I will say, as soon as you start working with different motifs, you need to be really careful about cutting up far enough here, because otherwise you are not going to be able to weave the heart. And that means I'm going to just add a couple of millimeters. And then I'm going to draw a diagonal. Right here. And with a symmetrical motif, it's actually fairly easy to do. You'll draw half of the motif you want, like a heart, and then add stripes like this. It looks better if you have stripes out here. Now I will cut these strips. As you can see, I'm completely ignoring the original slit and just doing my own thing here. if you're going to do motifs and they're going to be symmetrical, do cut both halves at the same time. Again, I'm going to turn both sides inside out. And it's really important, if you're going to do motifs, turn both sides inside out. Because otherwise, they may not work out. Most kits are able to design symmetrical motifs like this by hand if they've gotten good at the regular ones, somewhere between 4th and 6th grade. If you're working on asymmetrical motifs, that's a lot harder. So what you want to make sure is that when you put these together and imagine them woven, that they make a heart. So if I just put them like this, it's quite obvious. If we imagine these being woven together, this is not going to be a heart. So you have to figure out kind of how do the heart parts work. How do I make it become a heart? And that takes a bit more like meddling around to make it all work out. And usually kids will have to like turn it around a bit to figure that out. Oh, I turn this one inside out. So what we want is when these two meet, they need to make a heart. And it's going to be this one and this one. So one is the cutout and the other is the heart. And what you can show the kids is just turn this around until you can see that these two strips, when crossed, are making a heart. And you can see this is the way it has to be turned. So they kind of have to have the cutout parts mirrored when you put them together. And if the kids don't remember that, and they don't, the best part is to say you need to take the two parts that are going to make the heart, the wide and the narrow of these strips. And when you put them on across each other, sorry about the mess, when they can make a heart, that's when you'll be able to weave a heart. And so since this is a seasonal activity, most kids don't remember that. And I have to admit, I usually don't either. I usually have to just think a bit and then figure out how they fit together. But what we're going to do is basically the same. Go over the first, around the second. Oh, sorry. Through the next. So again, take turns going through or around. Stick it through. Now with the motifs, you want to push them up as far as possible from the beginning. Now this next strip has kind of a weird shape, so it's a bit harder to weave than we've been used to. I find it's easier to put the ones I'm not weaving, the white ones I'm not weaving, under the red ones, so I can see what I'm doing. And then have the red ones all on top. So I went through the first red, and now I have to go around the first red on my second strip. And again, when these strips become really thin, like here in the middle of the heart or here at the top, you need to be really careful that you're not ripping them. So I went over the first, through the second. And let's go. And now that we're getting to having two strips with motif parts, that is a bit trickier. Now over and then through. And I'll show you in the last bit of this video how to make sure that you've got the right parts of the strip on top too. So next white strip, I'm pulling that out from underneath. This one went over, so now I'll have to go through the red. And you can see this has got the big wide part of the heart. So that's going to be a bit annoying. Through that means we have to go over the next strip. And then through the next strip. And you want to make sure that you're getting all the parts of this white strip inside all the parts of this red strip. And that can be a bit tricky. You can stick your fingers in here and manipulate. That way you can get in between the layers. We want the white under the red here at the heart part. The white under the red. Oh, it's trying to escape. And once again, don't use red pastel to color your white paper if you need two colors and don't have colored copy paper. It will look terrible. Try to use colored pencils instead, or markers if you're really good at coloring nicely with markers. I'm not. So we will just slide the white parts up. Now it's time for the last strip. And you can see that'll have to go around this red. Now I have to get this through a really long part of red paper here. So I'm just getting it in between the layers. I'm pushing it gradually, carefully. And then over this red one and through the final corner. Now the final corner, when you're working with tinier strips, can be a bit hard to get in, so you might want to use like a pencil to open it up so you can sneak this little bit in. And what did I miss? Ooh, I did not get this one through the red one properly. You can see that's just a big white part here instead of it taking turns and being red and white. So I'll have to go back and get this one through properly so it looks good. Can't have this mess. And if you're thinking, hey, maybe I could do it in cardstock because that'll be a bit stiffer and easier to work with, that does not work because it'll be really hard to get that through the last parts. So what you can now see is you've got a woven heart. Oh, there's an error there too. That's what happens when you have thinner strips. They sometimes slip out. Now I have a woven heart with a big red heart in the middle and a lot of little squares around. So 3 different levels of weaving, just with 2 strips, then with more than 2, and then with a motif. Enjoy your paper hearts.